where are we doing? So where are we doing?
Yeah, that's an interesting thing that it didn't make it in the choir for yesterday. And we did like a lot of spiritual stuff that very much.
Okay.
It's right before the benediction. It should be in here.
Okay. So you. You'll introduce it.
I'll
Okay.
introduce it. Yep. Yeah, actually, it's. Let's see. Where do we put it? Yeah, I'm gonna talk about justice and generosity. Then I'm gonna talk about. Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
I got it in there. Okay. It's all good. It is all good. Okay. Let's see. What else do we need? Did we put the bowl in this? We didn't put the. Yeah, we got the bowl in there.
Yeah.
Okay. Judy forgot her text for the part she's going to be reading, so she drove home to get it.
Oh. I found a pretty much perfect chalice reading.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Just,
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, I know. It was like we could have written something for it. Was
Oh,
it
that's
like that?
awesome. That's perfect. Okay.
Even if it does have amen at the end, which I'm going to say.
What?
Even if it does say amen at the end, which I'm going to say. Amen.
You know, it just means we confirm it to be so.
Yeah.
It's really. Yes. So she's gonna lay
Yeah, just going to like.
all of them?
All of them.
Okay, fantastic. All right, I'm gonna go greet people.
to start this morning off with some congregational singing, a familiar song, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In. It's number 361 in the Great Hymnal.
Let's do this the traditional way and stand up and sing it together. Open your ears to the song. Open your ears to the song. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. We'll do this one. Let's do Don't Be Afraid of Some Change. Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
Good morning, and welcome to Westside Unitarian Universalist Church on this very special day of celebration. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Linda Phippen, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. It's so nice to see all of you gathered here in the sanctuary, and it's also nice to welcome those of you who are joining us on YouTube this morning or at some later time. Westside welcomes all people of goodwill, regardless of their specific beliefs or how they identify themselves or what spiritual path they follow. As our opening song said, enter, rejoice, and come in. If you are here in person, we hope you will stay after the service. Today we are having a special potluck lunch in celebration of the payoff of our mortgage. There's going to be plenty of food, so you're more than welcome to join us for lunch, whether you brought a food item or not. Nobody will go hungry this morning, I'm sure. If you're a visitor, while we're setting up for the potluck, you might want to stop by the visitors area near the coffee window where you can get information about Westside and about UU in general. We'd be happy to get to know you, so stop by if you'd like. Announcements about upcoming events, other useful information can be found in your order of service, or if you're on YouTube, it will have been scrolling on the screen. If you missed the announcements, you can always find them on our website, that's westsideuc.org, or in our newsletter. If you're not subscribing to our newsletter and would like to, you can do that on the website too. One special announcement, Earth Church, which normally would be next week, is canceled for that week. So now, as we begin our service, the Reverend Carol Badeau will invite our singing bowl to sound.
Good morning, everyone. It is so nice to see you all here this morning. I'm Reverend Carol Badeau. I am privileged to serve here as minister. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I am absolutely thrilled to see in this room a mix of faces from people who have been here for many, many, many years, people who are brand new, and faces I can't actually see virtually. It's really cool that this community has so many circles, holding circles of people with us today. As I invite the bowl to sound this morning, I'm going to invite you to think about your most positive association with this place. Whether you're here for the first or second time, or whether you've been here for years and years and years. The bowl invites us to come into a place of reflection. And so this morning, as the bowl sounds, allow yourself to find the joy, the celebration, the peace, whatever it is that coming to this community calls from you.
This morning, Shirley McGuire is going to be lighting our chalice and our community candles. We're lighting our chalice and the community candles to either side of the chalice. One, to acknowledge the suffering of people around the world, wherever they may be, whether it's in Gaza or Israel or wherever in the world people are suffering. We have a technical problem here. There we go.
It's all right, it's a team project.
Right.
It's always a team project.
There we go.
Don't burn yourself.
There we go.
That's correct.
And our other community candle, we will be lighting with some happy news, some good news, which we all need a little bit of every day. The one thing that I found recently was that in England, abandoned and flooded coal mines are being used as giant heat pumps to generate carbon-free electricity. It makes me hopeful that other abandoned mines may be having new lives in a special and useful way. So the reading for this morning's chalice lighting comes from Amanda Poppe. It is from the worship web on the UUA website. It is called The Home That Love Made. This is the home that love made. It is full of the love that the founders felt when they planned out these walls and raised these beams above us. This is the home that love made. It is full of the love of all who have worshiped here, those who have celebrated and grieved here, the babies dedicated, couples married, and family members mourned here. This is the home that love made. It is full of the love of our children as they learn and laugh together, and our youth as they grow into their own sense of purpose and meaning. This is the home that love made. It is full of the love of the staff who have served it, full of their hopes for this congregation, their hard work, and their acts of dedication. This is the home that love made. It is full of the love of the choir, the love made so clear in the voices lifted here on Sunday morning. This is the home that love made. It is full of our love, the love of this community, despite our differences and disagreements, the love that holds us together as a people. This is the home that love made. Can you feel it? May the love be with us always. Amen.
So the first thing I want to say before we talk about the history of this place is I want to point out what I'm wearing this morning. Some of you will recognize it, others will not. I never wear a stole, okay? I'm not a very formal minister, as you know, but this stole I thought it was an appropriate day to wear the stole. The stole is the symbol of sort of a minister's office or role, and this stole was the gift that this congregation gave to me on the day that I was installed as minister here. And it shows pictures of the Smoky Mountains and the chalice, right? So it really represents this as our home, this place, the community, and how special it is. So I thought today was the right day to pull out the stole and be a little more formal. It is, what a cool day that we get to celebrate here. For some of you who've been here for a long time, I mean, for some of you who are a little bit newer, you're like, oh, that's cool, the mortgage got paid off. But for people who've been here for a long time, it's a big deal. It's a really big deal. So it is wonderful to be celebrating this important milestone in the life of the community. A few weeks ago, this building was paid off. Now, there were previous loans for the land that were paid off many years ago, but this was the mortgage on the building. In honor of that, I'm going to give you a little bit of a run-through of the history of this congregation. And there's a bigger message in this, too. It's not just a sort of a cool narrative. There's more than just being grateful for the good things that have been accomplished here. It's really a story about being in it for the long haul. I've been using this new meditation app lately. I mean, I think it's a wonderful sign of our changing times that I have an app on my phone to help me meditate, okay? And this app is called Waking Up. And it's got a daily meditation that I get to set how long the time is on that, but it's also got these reflections that are sort of meditation and philosophical teachers talking about life, the universe, and everything. And I've been listening to this series of talks by a man named Michael Easter called Embracing Discomfort. So in his reflections, he talks about how we humans are wired to seek comfort, to look for the next easiest step. And that makes a lot of evolutionary sense. If we think about the history of our species, for most of the history of the human species, things were kind of tough, right? Hard to find food, surviving in a difficult world, right? You would want to conserve as much energy as possible for the basic survival activities. So we have this wiring for ease and comfort so that, you know, we have, when we don't absolutely have to be struggling to get up the mountain, to fight the tiger, to find the food, we would be resting. So it makes really good sense. And in modern society, things have changed quite a lot. We have achieved such a high level of comfort in general that comfort seeking in that context can turn into some detriments in many ways. Since we are actually designed for a level of exertion that our modern lives don't call for, we don't even actually have to walk out of our houses to have food delivered to our doors. We don't have to do anything to get the basic needs of our lives met, really. Because of that change, this wired-in message to take it easier sometimes prevents us from getting healthy levels of challenge and effort. So studies show us that people who take the stairs are healthier. If you're able to take the stairs, taking the stairs is actually better for you. People who regularly exert themselves physically and mentally are healthier and live longer. People who face and overcome challenges ultimately do better in the context of basic overall health and well-being. Which is to say that conflict, challenge, struggle, and working through things over the long term is really good for us. And I would suggest that this congregation's history is proof of that. In the long run, some struggle and effort and ups and downs are not only good for us, they are actually essential. This is something we can see in the story of this place. It has not been a completely smooth ride. As anyone who has been around for a while can tell you, could I get an amen on that? Amen. Yeah, there have been some challenges. There have been some ups and downs, right? But this institution continues to adapt and change. The individuals who pass through the doors here, whether they are still here or not, have taken things from this place out into the world. The long haul shows us that sticking with things, even through challenges, can have incredible benefits. So we're going to do a quick run through of the history of this institution. I'm not going to linger on any of the struggles or the conflicts or the challenges. They're par for the course in human life. And the first person we need to thank is the late Chuck Flanagan, who was a longtime member and leader at Westside, who wrote the bulk of this institution's history. He wrote it down in 2012. He used some notes from a previous member and leader, Alex Hild, and then Jerry Thornton added some to that story a few years ago. So I'm going to give you a summary of the history of this place. The story begins in 1949. When Tennessee Valley UU Church was formed. The next year, Oak Ridge UU Church was formed. It wasn't until 34 years later that a small group at TVUUC began considering what we often call planting another church, another UU church here in Knoxville. The group of people involved in that conversation included people like Cameron and Suzanne Coates, Alex and Nancy Hild, Nancy and Bob Mitchell, Phil Hamlin, and others. Those were people at Tennessee Valley who said, yeah, we'll support this. TVUUC and ORUUC agreed to help and support the project and offered, I think, financial resources as well as emotional and sort of guidance and support resources. By 1986, which I gotta tell you, it doesn't seem that long ago for some of us who are a little older. I know that for some of you who are younger, you're like, wow, that was a long time ago. And some of us are like, no, it wasn't that long ago, because I remember it really well. Okay, 1986, the first minister, Dillman Baker Sorrells, was found to serve the new congregation. The name Westside UU Church was chosen, and in September of 1986, the first service was held at Farragut High School. Dillman arrived full-time in February, and by April, the group had rented a storefront on Kingston Pike in which to meet. By May of 1987, when the congregation celebrated its Charter Sunday, that's like the big kickoff, right? 57 members signed the membership book. And let me tell you something about membership books. I am in the process of completing an editing project on the first Universalist society that was formed in my hometown in 1854. The membership book is one of the most important historical documents a historian can use in tracking the history of an institution. It is sitting on our table. I invite you to look at it after the service. On that Charter Sunday, 57 people signed the book. And only 2 of those original signers still actively attend today. Please raise your hand. Jonas Holdeman. Jonas and his wife, Judy. They have done all sorts of things to care for this community and this space over the intervening 36 years. Other founders who were with us in very recent times include Bill and Lois Calhoun, Margie Milburn, and the late Susan Wetling. They were all around very recently. I think Margie still shows up every once in a while for an occasional event. So now in August of that year, Westside held its first retreat at Pickett State Park. I had no idea it went back that far. That's amazing. And Sherry Jorgensen designed the logo, the chalice evolving into the dove. Okay, that was designed by a member early on. A few years later, in 1990, the congregation purchased the land, which would become our home, with a loan from the UUA that was paid off years later. In 1992, Reverend Dillman Baker Sorrells left for another call in Minnesota. Now, there is a series of ministers. I'm going to go through a series of different clergy people who've served here. And I want to tell you something I heard at a UU church in California where I served before. One day, the congregation was having a conversation. I think we were doing a ministerial search. I wasn't serving that congregation as minister. And while the main bulk of the congregation was having a conversation in the sanctuary, one of the elders, one of the founding members of that congregation was sitting in the library, and I stepped in to chat with her, and she looked at me and she said, "Carol, ministers come and go. The congregation is what remains." And I thought, that is important. The congregation is the center of Westside or any institution. The minister is a servant of that and a participant. So this congregation has had many clergy who've served here. So Dillman left in 1992, and the congregation was served briefly by an interim minister, Dale Robeson, who actually had medical concerns that cut his interim ministry short, which means that the congregation picked up the slack. It was a challenge, it was a difficulty, it was a bump in the road, and the congregation stepped in and handled things. Now, by that time, a number of other familiar faces had become part of Westside, and I am going to miss some of these people, so I'm going to say some names, and those of you who were here at the time can shout out a few others. Carolyn and TJ Blazing, Mary Levering and Mary Donovan, Chuck and Jane Flanagan, Shirley McGuire and Richard Licht, Terry and, is it Nancy Lindemer? Terry and Nancy Lindemer, the McWilliams. Who am I forgetting from that time period? Suzanne was here. Craig and Yetta were here by then. Jerry, were you guys here by then? No? All right. That was about when Ellen started attending, Ellen Greenwood? Okay. So in 1993, this group brought Greg Carter as an interim minister, and he was here very briefly. And I don't remember any stories about him. I'm seeing some looks on some faces. Like, it was in the, Jane?
And the man in charge of the transition ministry came and said, Greg Carter is no longer a minister.
Oh, okay. Talk about a challenge and an up and down. They had chosen Greg Carter, and then he left ministry and it was no longer a minister, so he didn't show up. Once again, I'm guessing who picked up the slack. D. Graham came. Okay. Notice how history requires lots of memories from lots of people to get it. All right. Eventually, what happened after that interim ministry was that Reverend Kathy Rowlands came to serve as the settled minister. And so she came in 1994, I believe, right? In 1995, the group, I'm going to now just say you all, because many of you are here, you all decided to build on the land on Fretz Road, which there had been purchased, and the groundbreaking ceremony was held in 1997. Okay? In 1997, Kathy Rowlands had been here for a couple years, but she got engaged to another minister, the Reverend Wayne Arneson, and said that she was going to be leaving the following summer. So here we are, we're in 1997. Early in 1998, think about how fast this is. How fast did y'all put this building up? It was pretty fast. If you decided in 95 to build here and moved in January of 98, moved into this building in 1998, and the stories I've heard about Lois Calhoun sewing the curtains on the back, right? Heading up the painting party to make sure the walls got painted. There was a lot of people just doing the work to make sure it got done. But that was the same year, so moved into the building, and then that summer, Kathy Rowlands left. And so that same year, Reverend Tom Rhodes arrived, okay, to replace Kathy. During these many years, Westside was incredibly busy. I'm giving you a few little highlights, but all sorts of things were happening. There were retreats at Pickett State Park. There were canvas dinners. There were adult and children's religious education programs, circle dinners, quilt making, publication of the paper newsletter, which was called the Westside Story, which I think is really cute for those of us who are older and know the book and the play, all right? There was volunteering, there were service projects, and there were challenges and conflicts, many of which don't get recorded. And I guarantee you there were debates over how to respond to things in the world. There were challenges about how we should or shouldn't act. In 2001, the town of Farragut, though, awarded Westside honors for its beautiful grounds. Now, some of you helped me out. I know that Sherry Hinton had a part in that. Yetta, too. Who else? Dave Goforth. Anybody else? Jonas. So the grounds here have been really important. And that same year, 2001, Terry Lindemer completed this platform that our chancel is made out of. Yep, and over the coming years, over the next years, he completed, it took him a few years, he didn't get it all down in 2001, but over the next few years, he made all of these wooden furnishings, including the foyer table and the boxes that we have here. All these matching pieces of wood and furniture were handmade by Terry Lindemer. And okay, somebody help me remember, what is Mr. Thor's first name? Ivan Thor and his wife? Janita. Ivan and Janita hosted the much beloved holiday tree party. What was it? Christmas tree parties. You got the Christmas tree from the farm and brought it here. I believe there were also some pig roasts and other Halloween, yes, fall events, right? So these were very popular events. Now, I took some notes out of this history that Chuck wrote down that I thought were interesting. In 2001, the congregation stated they had 3 goals: greater community outreach, growth, and enhanced spirituality. Let's just think about those in terms of where we are now. In 2002, a congregational survey showed that the congregation had a set of priorities that included these things. This was their list. We are searching for the spiritual in the Sunday services. Music is an integral part of our worship. Things we like include sermons, joys and concerns, meditation, story for all ages, and holding hands during the benediction. That one warmed my heart, let me just say. I was happy to see that that was there. A sense of community is highly valued, they said. Announcements are a problem and need to be addressed. Acoustics and sound system improvements would be beneficial. Guests and lay speakers would benefit from more guidance to have a spiritual message. Isn't that a fascinating snapshot of the congregational culture at that time? And we can ask ourselves what is still true, what has changed, where are we now compared to that? In 2005, let's see, let me write this down. Let me check this. This date looks wrong. In 2005, I believe Tom Rhodes departed. Is that correct? Check me on my dates. In 2005, Tom Rhodes departed and Mary Moore arrived as interim minister. She served for a couple of years until the Reverend Mitra Jafarzadeh was settled as minister in 2007. This was also the year that Bill and Lois Calhoun established the first endowment fund for Westside. Now, this period in the life of the church was a very difficult one for the congregation. 2008 was a profoundly sad and difficult year for Westside and for Unitarian Universalism as a whole, when the shooting occurred at TVUUC, and one Westsider, Linda Krager, and one TVUUC member, Greg McKindry, were killed, and a number of others were wounded. Despite this tragedy, though, Westsiders continued to press forward with good work, even in that year. In 2009, the congregation earned the status of being an official welcoming congregation, which took a whole process of conversations and education to achieve that. And even that same year, plans for the Memorial Garden were getting put in place. In 2010, the first Share the Plate partner was chosen, and in 2011, Westside began serving as a family promise host. Reverend Jafarzadeh left in the summer of 2013, and the Reverend Morris Hudgens arrived for a 2-year interim position. He served in that position until the summer of 2015, which is when I became the settled minister here at Westside. And during those many years, there were all kinds of other people serving this congregation in volunteer and professional roles. There were volunteer and paid religious education directors. There were volunteer and paid membership coordinators. There were volunteer and paid administrators. Some of the names of those staff members include Debbie Campbell, Wendy Weiss, our current administrator, Brad Kurtz, our current membership coordinator, Elizabeth Corbett. Okay, who am I missing? Folks, am I missing anybody? Dawn Lindsay. Yes, Dawn Lindsay. Yep. Judy Holdeman. Who? Margaret. Margaret West. Margaret West. All of these were people who served to keep the programs and the infrastructure that is the institution here running. Now, in 2020, like everything else on the planet, we shut down because of COVID. And this was a big change for Westside. We switched to our first virtual services. We ran our services by Zoom at first. We held services outside when we could, and ultimately we established our current multi-platform format. This is a huge change and a good one. It's another example of being in it for the long haul, facing challenges and deciding how we were going to come back together. But I will tell you that the tradition that received the most glee and relief when we were able to come back together was potluck. Potluck. The first time we were able to have potluck together again post-pandemic was a big deal for us. Now, around that time between 2020 and 2021, before that even, another really important thing that happened slightly earlier than that was Richard Licht and Shirley McGuire established our second endowment fund for Westside that is housed at the East Tennessee Foundation. That was about 2018, 2017, 2018. Okay, so that is another huge development in the life of the congregation. And then around 2020, 2021, a number of folks here started talking seriously about paying off the mortgage as a way to ensure the financial future of the congregation. A number of people were involved in that. Ellen Greenwood, I'm going to try to get this right, Ellen, Lori Valaga, Ann Harvey, Craig, you were involved in that, right? And Carol Coffey, we just want to take a moment to acknowledge Carol's participation in that, because sadly, Carol passed just as this legacy campaign was kicking off. And actually, his memorial service was held the same day as the kickoff celebration for the legacy campaign. I cannot think of a more powerful legacy. Carol gives us an example, as do so many others in the history of the life of this congregation, that despite loss, the legacies of individual contributions carry on. Despite Carol's passing at the beginning of that, other people carried on, and through the 22 and early 23 church year, that campaign made enormous progress on paying off our mortgage. Now, around June or July, we were all like, this is great. We're going to be done in like 2026. We thought that was awesome. And then it kept getting better, and it kept getting better. And then finally, we had a board retreat this summer, like end of the summer in September, and Craig Brandt, our treasurer, said, well, I got to tell you all, here's the big news. We've just had more contributions, and we're going to pay off the mortgage now, which was, even at the end of the campaign, that was still like a year and a half earlier than we thought it was going to happen. This is an important message for us. So I live on a farm. Many of you know I live on a farm. And one of the things we talk about in farming is the idea that much of the work we do, if we're doing really healthy farming, we will never see the benefits of. When you plant trees or you plant a forest for future generations, You're not going to live 50 or 60 years probably to see those trees. When we're restoring the soil, we're not going to be the ones necessarily who are going to get to benefit from that restored soil. And yet, doing these things for the long haul, facing challenges, sometimes you're not going to get to see the rewards of those challenges being conquered. But yet, those who have been here, and us here today, what we do matters for the long haul. People who do the work, who weather the storms, who face the challenges, celebrate the victories, and live through the ambiguity, those things matter. So we're going to take a minute to hear some stories from a few people who have been here, who want to share a little bit. And we're going to start with Shirley. Shirley McGuire is going to share a little bit. Jonas, okay. Jonas is going to pop in. Jonas, how about you let Shirley go first? Let Shirley go first and you can go second. How's that sound? Because she's got her script ready. Let Shirley go first, and then Jonas can have a turn.
Hi, I'm Shirley McGuire. A lot of you newer people don't recognize me, but Richard and I started coming here in July of '87. By then, as Carol gave a great history, they'd been meeting up at Farragut High School in the band room. They had just moved to Kingston Pike because Stan Glockner was here, and our wedding was in May, and we invited him, but he didn't come because he was here painting. At the rented space. They had to paint the walls or something. Anyway, I remembered Dillman, and before she closed the membership book, I'd already started coming frequently, or we had. She asked me if I wanted to be a founding member. However, I had never been at a church like this before, where they didn't have rules and regulations and creeds and everything else that you had to believe and adhere to. You just had to be a good person who wanted to make the world a better place. So I said, well, I'm a little leery about this. I want to see if this is going to last. So I always consider myself a pseudo-founding member.
Absolutely.
And Carol's done a fantastic job of recapping so much. However, I had, from the time we started coming here in '87, I have held every position on the board. I've headed up every, committee, except worship. I just felt I wasn't sure I could do that, but everything else I did. You mentioned Sunday potluck. When I was membership, we started Sunday potluck. For a while, we did a Friday potluck, but that attendance fell off because so many people work, and it's hard to get something together and get out here, and so that went by the wayside. One time, we were having a potluck. I think it was one of the Friday potlucks, and I stopped at the liquor store on Campbell Station Road to get some wine. I don't drink wine, so I don't know anything about it, so I told the man I needed wine for a dinner, and he said, "What are you having?" I said, "Well, we're having potluck." I said, "I go to the Unitarian Church on Grigsby Chapel Road," and he went, "What, a church? And you want wine?" So, like Carol said, we bought the property here. Kemp Fain was a developer at the time, and he told us about it, and we came and we looked at several sites. We looked at one on Ebenezer Road near the railroad tracks, But we decided that probably wasn't a good idea because there was a train that came through just around, church time. So we ended up here. We had campaigns to raise money, and we owned the property, as Carol said, a few years before we built it. Terry Lindemer, who was a chemist at Oak Ridge, but knew a lot about building, as you can see. He would come out and make sure they were doing things right, and that was really a big help because you want to make sure the building is going to stand up for a while. When we moved in, we found out that we were responsible for the walking trail. So I think I was on finance at the time. So we had the 3T campaign to raise money. We had to plant some trees on the banks so the soil wouldn't all wash away. We had to do the walking trail, and the third T was for tots, so we could do the playground. So it just seemed like we were always raising money for something. And anyway, I don't get here a lot anymore, but I am definitely always here in spirit because this is, in my opinion, the way we should all be in the world, being kind to each other, trying to make the world a better place, and going out into the world to help people. And so I always like Maya Angelou when she says, when you know better, you do better. So we're not perfect. And when people ask about this church, I always say, we're not perfect, but we're trying to make things better in the world, trying to help people on their journey to get where they want to be. And it's in my memorial service, but I guess one of my biggest regrets in life is I didn't find Unitarian Universalism while my children were young and raised them in this faith rather than a faith full of dogma and such. So I'm not here every Sunday, but I'm always here in spirit.
Thanks. All right, Jonas, you want to say a couple words?
When we first bought this property, this area, there were rows of apple trees. It must be about where people are sitting over here. So you might close your eyes and imagine that you're sitting in an apple orchard. Beyond that, there were remains of what had been gardening, rows and stuff. It had, fairly rich soil that ended up getting removed when the building was constructed and left this shale kind of underneath there. But this had been a farm. Now, I understand from a fellow by the name of Orness, and if you look on the tags, name tags, you'll see an Orness, H-A-R-N-E-S-S. The H is silent, and that lady is somehow related to the Orness family through marriage or something. Well, anyway, Mr. Orness said that there used to be a spring up the valley here. It was a seasonal spring and the water would flow. But when they put a sewer line through there, they did some dynamiting, and he said the water stopped flowing. But the ground kind of sloped down and up, and after a rain, there might be some local flooding, but then that dried up, and this was all one continuous piece of property with access over there. Well, they started construction upstream and more water flowing, and so I got a skid loader and essentially dug out a nice smooth swale for the water to flow through. And in the process, I discovered something. Now, if you kind of dig around, you might see some chert and stuff like that, but you won't see any smooth stones. But there was this smooth stone that obviously came from a river somewhere. And it's one of these stones that if you hold it, it just exactly fits your hand. It's so comfortable. You know that that's what that stone was for. And on the bottom, there's some little cracks. And this indicates that, at least seasonally, this area, this valley, had Native Americans living here. And I think Carol told me that somewhere that particular hammerstone is still around.
It's on my desk. It's sitting in my office.
But you might also close your eyes and imagine Native Americans living along this valley here, at least seasonally. So we have a long history, at least an indication of a history that goes beyond our written history.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jonas. That's awesome. Thank you for putting us in that context. That, we did for a while. Stephanie Harness Gimble attended with her family, and she was the granddaughter of that family and could remember playing on the farm as a girl. So, yeah. And those stones, I'll bring them out during potluck so you can see them. I have that stone sitting in my office. Judy, where did Judy? Come on up. Why don't you take a turn? Judy Winchester. There's the microphone for you here.
Okay, so my story begins on Monday, February 12th, 2013. It was an unusually warm day for February. I was walking out of a bar about noon to my van in the parking lot.
Okay, wait a minute. I'm going to put this microphone for you.
Okay, so there I was, walking into the parking lot, and I was hit by a car that was driving in the wrong lane. So in the emergency room, they asked me if there was someone that they could call for me. So I asked them to call the minister at Westside Unitarian Universalist Church. Soon, Reverend Mitra Jafarzadeh was at my side in the ER. She quickly assessed the situation. Because I had 2 broken legs and a broken left arm, I was going to be there for a while, and she needed reinforcements. Now, you may be asking yourself, why didn't I want the ER nurse to notify my husband, Jim? Well, he wasn't at home waiting for me. He was in Birmingham, Alabama, at the Veterans School for the Blind, learning how to use a white cane. Well, Keith and Debbie Schleifer were soon at my side. What a help they were. Remember, my van was sitting in a parking lot. They went and got it, and they drove it to their house so that they could watch over it. And others came to my rescue. Ellen Greenwood, raise your hand. Okay. She made a flying trip to Lambert's Healthcare for hospital gowns. You see, when I was going to be moved from the hospital to a rehabilitation facility, the hospital told me that gowns would be provided. And when I got there, they said I had to provide my own clothes. So Ellen stood between me and nudity. and so did others. Lois Calhoun cut a slit up the back of a nightgown and brought it to me. And Jeff Mazeroff's mother, Sarah, who sewed, she made me a gown. And I had so many guests at the rehab center, they had to put chairs in the hall. It looked like a committee meeting. When I had to go by ambulance to see my doctor, who was in charge of broken bones, I thought I should have someone go with me. I called Linda Morrison and asked if she'd like a ride in an ambulance. She came along, and thank goodness she did. There was a lot of paperwork to be filled out, which I couldn't have possibly done. Well, going home created new emergencies. I asked if anyone could put a board on my door sill so it would be easier for an ambulance gurney to get in. And David Bechtel built an elaborate L-shaped ramp at the door and a ramp at the curb. My dining room table had to be moved upstairs to make room for a hospital bed in the dining room. Richard Litch, sitting right over there, raise your hand. And I forgot who else. Richard came and he moved my dining room table up to the upstairs area. Richard, do you remember who helped you? Because you didn't do that by yourself. Yeah, I know, I forgot too. Do you remember who brought it back down because it had to come back down again? It wasn't you.
Andy helped with that. Andy Galt.
Oh.
Andy Galt helped.
No, that's a later time.
Oh, that was another table moving. Okay.
We've had more than one hospital bed in my dining room.
Got it.
Anyway, the hospital bed needed extra long single sheets, which I didn't have. So Mitra found some and bought them with money from the minister's discretionary fund. Sue Draper was always checking on me. She brought me a plant and an Easter basket. Robin Hill picked up something that I'd previously ordered, and then he loaned me a walker. Jane Flanagan, raise your hand. Susan Wetling, Kelly Humans, and Val Whiting were others that came and visited after I was at home. And I know there were more, but there may be people here that remember that they did, and I've forgotten them, but anyway, had plenty of company. Now, remember, Jim is in Birmingham, Alabama, where I had taken him, but I sure wasn't bringing him home. So on March 30th, Larry and Nancy Legau did that. They drove all the way to Birmingham, brought Jim all the way back here. And then Nancy cut our hair. Bill Calhoun, he drove Jim to a doctor appointment that he had to go to. I'm sure there are others that I've forgotten, but you get the picture. This church took care of us like a family. People here today don't recognize many of the people that I've named, but they made the tradition that you enjoy today, and you are keeping it going for future members.
Judy, thank you so much for saying so many of those names. It's awesome. And Ellen Greenwood, you said you were going to say something?
Well, I'll just make mine real short.
Okay. Okay.
Well, we've heard, for those of you who may not know me, I am Ellen Greenwood, and I started coming here in 1993. At least I joined. My first Sunday here was the Sunday that Dillman Baker Sorrells announced that she was leaving. So I never had the privilege to get to know her, but I've been around a long time. I do have fond memories of this building. For one thing, in June of 1999, my husband Dave and I got married right up here with Tom Rhodes as minister. But I've been around a long time, and we've heard so many wonderful stories, and I think there are more to come. I think I will just mention one person, actually a couple, this morning and let it go at that. And that is Janet and Vic Vaughn. They started coming shortly after we were in this building. I'm not sure when, but they were very, very active. And we were really fortunate just a few weeks ago to get to visit with Janet at the community where she lives in Pennsylvania. And Vic sadly passed on a couple of years ago. But when Janet was here, we did a lot of things together, she and I did. But she was very heavily involved in our music program. She played piano. She helped us to lead the choir. She sang in the choir. She was active in many other committees, especially our social justice committee at that time. And she led the committee. She was chairperson of the committee that crafted our covenant of respectful relations. Yeah. So she's always been a very integral part of this church. Janet will be celebrating her 90th birthday on Thanksgiving Day. So I have brought a birthday card that is back on the small table there. Bridget's got it. Please sign that today, especially if you are one of us who remember Janet. But even if you don't, and you would like to say happy birthday, that would be wonderful.
Awesome. So what's great about that, yeah, thank you, is that we don't, just because someone's not physically around anymore, whether they have passed or whether they're physically in another location or just not able to attend anymore, no one is forgotten. It takes all of us to remember all the many things that have happened here. But if we're in it for the long haul, we are here for the past and the future. A faith-based and nonprofit organization like Westside is not in it for a quick buck or a short-term gain. We are in it for the long haul. And so there are lots of ways we contribute to the long haul of this institution. You can ensure the future of this institution by making financial contributions. And for those of you who haven't been here in a while, one of the big changes we've made is we don't pass a plate anymore. We actually have, Bridget and Alice can demonstrate our fancy new donation box. You can put a cash or check donation in that box during the coffee hour, before or after the service. You can also use your cool phone and the QR code on the front of the box to make a donation. If you are with us virtually, you can make a donation using the QR code on our screen or through our website. You can also support our justice and generosity projects, all kinds of activities that are happening in the world. And Elizabeth, our membership coordinator, just wants to give us an update on our project that we're going to be doing for the holiday season.
Good morning. I'm Elizabeth Corbett. My pronouns are she and her, and as Carol said, I'm Membership and Programs Coordinator. We are finishing up 2 fall projects. You can read about them in the bulletin, order of service, and the last day for those collecting period products and also providing things for Samantha Mundy's program will be November 19th. And we are also starting our winter project. I announced last week that I didn't have information about the Family Promise kids that we would be supporting, but today I do. So if you are interested in supporting a child through Family Promise, remember those are children in the Family Promise Knoxville, which supports families that are unhoused and celebrating and providing Christmas gifts for them or holiday gifts for them is really important to them. We have a 14-year-old, a 13-year-old, a 7-year-old, and joy of joy, we have a newborn. So wouldn't it be fun to buy gifts for a newborn? See me after the service if you're interested in signing up for a kid.
Thanks, Elizabeth. And we will be, as we did last year, we'll be wrapping those gifts at our holiday party, which is on December 10th this year. December 10th, after our annual solstice spiral. So today we celebrate the amazing work and love and care and efforts and courage and good hearts of all Westsiders, those who came before us, those who are here now, and those yet to arrive. The first ideas for this congregation were discussed 40 years, and it is our wish that 40 years from now, this congregation will have continued to adapt and evolve and be in it for the long haul so that 40 years from now, another group of people, who knows how in the world they'll actually be meeting, I can't imagine that yet, that they will be saying, gosh, we're really glad those folks did what they did. May it be so. Now, we're going to celebrate by singing a closing song. The choir has been working on this, so I'm going to invite the choir to come up and get ready while I explain this song. This song is called Gaudeamus Hodie, and Gaudeamus Hodie means today we celebrate. Today we celebrate. They're the only words to the song. It's not complicated. We just say Gaudeamus Hodie over and over again. So the way this works is the choir is going to sing the whole thing through. Some of you will recognize it. You might not. Once we sing it the whole way through, then the choir is going to sing it in parts. You can join in on any part however you want. It's a create it as you go, be intuitive, see what happens, join in as you feel like you would like to do so. And I'm going to invite you to rise in body and spirit as we sing this so that you can feel that sense of celebration in you.
Gaudeamus, Gaudeamus, Gaudeamus Hodie, Gaudeamus, Gaudeamus Hodie,
Join in.
Gaudeamus, Gaudeamus, Gaudeamus Hodie, Gaudeamus, Gaudeamus Hodie. Keep going. Gaudeamus, Gaudeamus, Gaudeamus Hodie, Gaudeamus, Gaudeamus Hodie,
Excellent. Awesome. You can remain standing because, by gosh, we're still going to fulfill that old dream of holding hands during the benediction. You are welcome to hold your own hands. If you don't want to hold anyone else's, it is perfectly awesome to hold your own hands. We join hands. We're going to let everybody get in on this. If you are with us virtually, I would invite you to put your hands on your heart and notice that we are holding you as well in our hearts, even here in this space. We join hands because we are a community, stretching not just across this room, but also across time and space. Through generations, past, present, and future, we connect. We are, yes, a relatively small congregation, but we are steady through the ups and the downs, and we can make a difference. Today, as we share food and stories, let us also share the deep conviction that our small actions, carried out over time, do indeed matter. Let us go in peace and with passion to serve the world and build more of the community we dream of. May it be so. Go in peace.